is an aquatic fitness and recreation industry PD series. My name's Liz Tassoni and I'm the Manager of Swimming and Water Safety Education at Lifesaving Victoria. So today's episode is session 5 for us. So it's about rebuilding Learn to Swim after COVID-19. So there's been a lot of discussion, advocacy and speculation on when our pools will reopen. We've seen other states and territories, such as NT, start this transition already. We know that there's a cabinet meeting this Friday and the state government will be making some announcements on the 11th. Will this have any mention to swimming pools and public spaces? We don't know. What we do know is restrictions will be gradually lifted. What we do know is that if you haven't started planning for a modified opening, then perhaps today and some of the resources we'll be talking about and releasing in the near future can start you on this process. There's a lot of information out there, so various frameworks, templates, manuals, documents and webinars like these. But what we really want to give you is practical tools to provide you with a solution. So we're here speaking as Learn to Swim and water safety experts from a peak body. We're not medical professionals and we're not government officials, so please make sure you keep up to date with that information. You can go to the health alerts page on our website, which will direct you there. So as always, some housekeeping. So if you've just joined us or it's your first one, please keep your microphones off or muted. Please keep your camera off so it spares some of the bandwidth and you can get some, you can see the presentation clearly. If you have any questions at any time, please write them in the chat section. If the chat section is not working for you, you can email schoolswimming@lsv.com.au and we'll be monitoring that inbox as well. And just a reminder, this webinar will be recorded. So if you don't want to appear on here, then please turn off and you can always catch a recording at a later time. As always, I'd love to hear where you're all from, so feel free to go to the chat section and let us know where you're from, so what swim school and what location. So my example always is ABC Swim School in Port Melbourne, so please tell us where you're from. Now, just 2 people talking today, so we're going to have Argy Mariolis, who's a General Manager at Cleaning Melbourne, and then myself as well. As always, we will have Jen, Michelle and Caitlin from the Water Safety team who will be monitoring the comments box, adding any links. If you've got any questions, add them there and they'll speak and ask me on your behalf. Just a reminder, if you don't have access to the chat function, please email schoolswimming@lsv.com.au with any questions. We'd also love to hear your feedback on the first Watch and Learn episode 2, please. So just to set the scene today, I wanted this session to be really short, brief and to the point. I know that I've listened to a lot of 1-hour-long webinars, so I wanted to try and make this one shorter and punchy. We're going to set the scene, so we're going to talk about advocacy versus operational when it comes to opening swim schools. We're going to talk about the reopening guide for aquatic facilities. Then we're going to hear from Argy Cleaning Solutions. Obviously, cleaning is going to be a big part of it, so he's really going to prompt you with some key areas that you need to look at from a swim school perspective in those high traffic areas so that you can go back and look at what you're doing and then perhaps review your processes. Then we're going to be launching the swim school support services, which we're really excited about. Included in that is a free swim teacher PD. And we have also launched on Monday Water Safety at Home series. So we're just going to have a brief update on that. So let's go to setting the scene to start with. So to sum it up, in my eyes, there's 2 parts to this learning to swim returning, which you can see up in the yellow box. There's a broader advocacy piece And there's a turnkey piece, which is the operational aspect. So what do you have to have ready for when that, that key's turned, the door's open and you've got people coming in? In terms of the advocacy side of things, LSV has released a statement called Considerations for Swimming Pools and Aquatic Facilities. So the girls are going to add a link to that in the comments section now, but it talks about working with key stakeholders as an industry and also accompanies the broader Royal Lifesaving Society document called A Case for Reopening Aquatic Facilities in Swim Schools. So again, that link will be, so those two links will be available in the comments section. For the Royal Lifesaving document, it's got some great insights from the Australian Health Protection Principle Committee. It talks about health measures versus economic measures and a call to government for assistance. Justin Scarr, who's the CEO of Royal Life, also did a webinar on this last Thursday. So the team are going to provide a link to this in the comments section as well. If you do nothing else this week, I highly recommend to read and listen to those three documents. So it's an LSV document, a Royal Life document, and the webinar from last Thursday. They're three key crucial parts. As for today, we're focusing on the operation side of things, so the dark blue box. So we're excited to announce, pending Minister approval, that we've got a reopening guide for aquatic facilities. This is a risk mitigation document, so it's available in PDF, but it's also available in a Word document so that you can edit it for what suits you. And basically it's a document for owners and operators to consider in order to protect patrons and staff from the risk of coronavirus as part of this kind of phased activity process. The reason why I like it, and it's really good, is because it breaks it up into various areas. So there's the general area, as you can see in this example, and don't worry about what the wording is, it's just there for a picture example. This is a reception and foyer area. It's got changing areas and splash parks and pools. So you go through and complete these as part of your opening processes and implement any mitigation processes that need to be implemented. There's also a restart decision-making tree. So you start at the top and you answer yes, no, and work your way through the tree to get to a point where you need to make a decision. Okay, I'm hoping Argy's on the line, if someone can unmute him or he can unmute himself, because we're going to go for a few minutes for Cleaning Melbourne to talk about their COVID-19 cleaning responses. Argy, are you there? Argy, can you unmute yourself with a little microphone? All right, we might give Argy 10 more seconds. If not, we'll keep moving through the presentation and we can come back to it. So Argy, if you are there, if you can unmute yourself and turn your camera on. All right, I might leave the water safety team to chase that up and we might move through a few slides now and come back. Unfortunately, Argy couldn't jump on early for our test run. So this is why we have test runs, but that's okay. Okay, so we're going to move forward to the current state of play. So this is the industry at a glance. And basically this industry at a glance information has come from the Victorian Water Safety Strategy, which is a 2016 to 2020 document. Exciting news is the Victorian Water Safety Strategy is getting updated and relaunched for the next version now. So watch that space, and in in the coming months that will be launched. But basically what we know is in the top box, is the size and scope of the sector. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but it's a really big sector, really big industry. It has lots of people come through the doors and we employ lots of people as well. We know that swimming water safety skills are essential. We know that too many people are drowning, and we know that it's a lack of skills and knowledge is a key contributor to this. We also know that last year was a terrible year for drownings. We don't know what impact this will have on drowning, but we know that this pandemic is preventing the learning of these vital skills. So we really feel like now the immediate rush is over. It's now time to think about the long term and come back as an industry stronger than before. And LSV really want to work and support you through this. So we've put together this LSV projected restriction lifting time. So the effects and changes on how we live life came really quickly. It was basically a 3-week period where things went from zero, really steep curve up, as you can see in the light blue section, to really strong restrictions within a 3-week period. These restrictions, however, will take a long time to reverse. And some of it is dependent on a vaccine, if there's one, but it's likely to be phased lifting of restrictions, and as we as a society begin to control the virus. So as weather warms up and people begin to venture out again, parents will be drawn to providing their kids with a sense of normality after these unprecedented times. However, concerns regarding COVID-19 will remain, and these need to be addressed to enable our industry and our sector of Learn to Swim to restart again. This is just very much our projections. It may happen in different orders or slight, different patterns, but we need to be prepared for all those circumstances and give you the tools so you can put them in and out according to how this time frame actually, I suppose works out. So if you go to the bottom, what should we be thinking about now? So we need to think about customers' perception of Learn to Swim and swim schools. We know that as businesses, you're really concerned about when things will restart and what do you need to do to prepare in that time. And there's been lots of mixed messaging around this. So hopefully this webinar will provide some clarity. And we also need to look at how this has impacted Learn to Swim students. So these are the questions from the previous slide. So we're going to start at the top. So as businesses, you're concerned about these times. So how will this change how you deliver your programs? When will you snap back to normal? And will that happen in time for peak season or term 4? What do these physical restrictions mean for you and your staff teams? And what are we meant to do now to prepare? So really simply, if you transfer over to the yellow box, these are what we think are the solutions. So there's going to be a swim school programming options resource, which is going to be delivered by the end of the month. This really, it's not talking about as parents come through reception, it's really talking about the program and structure of things such as lessons. So the classic one that's mentioned all the time is the low ratios. But for example, this resource will include things like staggering class times. So do you have 2 classes start at 4 o'clock and the other 2 classes start at 4:15? So then we know those high traffic congestion areas are not full. So reception's less full, pool deck's less full. Do we have different entry and exit points for the students in class so that they enter in the shallow end, exit via the deep end? Do we look at shallow end, deep end teaching? So shallow end teachers from the, lane 1 teachers from the shallow end, lane 2 teachers from the deep end, lane 3 teachers from the shallow end again. So there's not all those kids huddled up at the shallow area like traditionally there is. Do we look at moving all our infant classes to deeper water? So then this frees up the shallow space for your preschool and your lower primary, who are going to need, where possible, to have, the extra comfort and support of perhaps being able to touch the ground. Staff train. I'm going to talk more about this in our next slide. So hold on for that one. Staff training. So I really think we need to look at a different way of teaching. So the traditional Aussie way of teaching is very much in the water, it's hands-on. This almost needs to be thrown out the door, and we need to look at different ways of teaching for different levels. So for example, we might say teaching out of the water from mid-levels and above. And I know all you diehard passionate people out there, and I'm one of them, that these are not ideal circumstances. So please, I'm not saying it's best practice. I'm saying what can we do to get through the stage that we need to. Also for the upper levels, we might use things like a lot more visual aids. So at the end, like they do in a squad, they've got the program written up. So as the kids come back in that maybe level 3, 4 or 5, they can see what the next activity is and they keep going. So they're not stopping and waiting for instruction between skills. You could also use things such as stations, teaching stations, and obstacle courses as well. So that's just to plan a couple of seats. We do have some free teacher PD coming, which will be along that lines, which I'll talk about soon as well. The next one is school swimming programs. So swimming programs, there's going to be a lot more information to come on this, but obviously it sits with the Department of Education and a decision around when excursions can happen firstly. And once excursions are allowed, then what's that programming look like from a swim school perspective? And then the last one in this is the risk mitigation document, which I showed you earlier on. So these 4 key things are going to be essential to be able to start up your lessons again. The second one is customer perceptions of the safety of learn to swim. So are the swimming facilities clean? Are other kids contagious, and is my child at risk? What if I've been in contact with another parent? And are the swimming teachers safe? So really you need to build customer confidence here and have a really strong communication plan on how you're going to communicate these things. The type of things that you want to communicate are safety precautions that you're taking, staff training that you're doing, modifications to the normal process, and what can they expect? So when they come through, what's going to be different? What's reception going to look like? Are turnstiles going to be turned off? Is hand sanitizer going to be there? There's going to be physical distancing in terms of the spectator space. So all of that kind of information you need to communicate. And then lastly, how will this have an impact for Learn to Swim students? So will the students be able to go back to the same level after having a long period of off? It's like learning their maths times tables. They haven't learnt them for a period of time. Can they remember them when it's time to come back? You might need to look at reviewing your curriculum. Will children's behaviours and attitudes change as part of this pandemic? And how do we as swim schools and swim teachers respond to this? So, in terms of whether students come back to the same level or not, there might need to be a mini assessment process happen at the beginning of each class, which we do anyway, but the effort might be on building the children's confidence up to start with. So the focus is on participation and effort in a really comfortable and supportive environment, as opposed to the focus being on achievements and moving up levels. Elements of the curriculum may need to be on hold for now. I don't know, I'm just using an example that you might be able to do all the warm-ups to diving contactless, but when it comes to actually that 2-foot dive, you generally do it with contact. So that might need to be removed from the curriculum for a short period of time while you work out how you can do it without contact. also need to look at the class rules of engagement, and we need to be really clear about how the class is going to run to the students, and how it's going to be different, and really emphasise these points. And then you might have some kids come through and say, oh, you know, I don't want to touch him, he's got corona. And, you know, how do we deal with that and their behaviours? And they've been, you know, in isolation for so long. So how do we really recognise, respond and refer when needed as well? So I did talk about at the beginning of the session that we're officially launching today our Swim School Support Services. So the Swim School Support Services has two key elements in phase one. You're going to see a lot more around this work in the future, so keep an eye out. But the first one is swim teacher professional development. So we know there's a long journey. We've spoken about that. You've seen the triangle image, which shows a very slow back to normal reality. And LSV really want to work with you and these physical restrictions as they're slowly lifted in the life of this pandemic. So as part of that, we want to offer the industry 1 hour PD session, which is based around teaching with physical distancing and in this, I suppose, corona environment. It's going to be an online webinar. And it's going to give teachers all the skills that they need to be able to deliver lessons. It is broken up into different areas, so infants, preschools, lower primary, mid-primary and upper primary. As I said, it goes for an hour. Registrations will be available for that soon. So even though it's a free resource, you just need to register through and then you get the link to the free resource. So registration details will be available from next week. And the actual resource itself will be available from May 18th. Online, do it in your lounge room, and yeah, registration details to come. So if you've got staff on JobKeeper, this is a great way to upskill them, get them prepared for when you do turn the key and your centre opens. The second part to the Swim School Support Services is that document I spoke about earlier in the top yellow box, which is about swim school programming options. So, you know, when I spoke about entry, exits, shallow end, deep end, lower ratios, all of that kind of thing. So we really want to maximise, you know, your pool occupancy as physical restrictions are in place. So, you know, do you know what the capacity of your swimming pool is according to the restrictions at the moment? Do you know what the capacity of your viewing space is with restrictions as well? We're also going to be looking at lesson modifications for infants, preschool, lower, middle and upper. This isn't the teaching aspect. This is more so looking at, you know, lower primary school level might need to be along the wall so they have the longer space available to them. And understand the economic measures versus the public health measures. So that will be available, as you can see there on the left-hand side, in a free resource, and it will be distributed in May 2020. An additional option for you to do is we can customise this to your facility, and to make sure that you're maximising profitability. And if you want that, just email schoolswimming@lsv.com.au. It's really, really obviously important that we want to do as much as possible to stop the spread of this disease. You've seen in the recent cluster at the abattoir that has now had over 40 people in it. If this happened at a swim school, an aquatic facility, it would need to be closed down and it would create chaos for our industry. So that's why we are working with a work group to develop this free resource. So on that work group is Align Leisure, Belgravia Leisure, the Y and Paul Sadler. And it's important that we start thinking about the next steps needed to restart the sector. Now, just before I go on to my last slide, I'm going to ask my water safety team if one of them can speak up and let me know if we think Argy is on board yet.
Yes, I'm here, Liz. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. I'm just going to go back to your slides and you can take us through. and then I'll take the broader group through the next steps. So there you go.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thank you everyone for giving me some time today to just emphasise, I suppose, what's already come up, the importance of trying to get things up and running again across Victoria, and particularly things like swim schools to help bring back our health and our sanity to some extent as we get the kids back out there and back to normal. Liz mentioned the importance of hygiene going forward and being able to prevent as best as we possibly can under the circumstances viruses like COVID, but many others that can lurk out there and cause some sickness and ill health. So cleaning becomes extremely important moving forward. And on the slides, we'll just see some quick considerations for schools and other facilities to take into context moving forward. On the slide there, we have things like prevention and response, which will become critical in the future. And prevention means how do we clean, what do we clean, and how often do we clean so we can prevent the possibility of infections and the need for decontamination type cleanings if something does break out. One of the things that's important for schools really to consider going forward is what are your plans around cleaning? Depending on the numbers that you get through your schools and the times they come through there and how much high touch point areas and surfaces people may come across, you can put together a plan for how you go about your cleaning, particularly the frequency of the cleaning. Traditionally, facilities would say to cleaning organisations, you know, come in once a night after business hours and just please clean the place. I think going forward, the way you plan your cleaning approach will be particularly important, mainly taking into consideration the high touch points, how many surfaces and areas get touched through the day, how you can fit some cleaning frequencies through there to clean and sanitize those particular areas, and what sort of equipment, protective equipment you'll provide for your staff and for your customers. Moving forward, considerations around providing sanitizing stations and sanitizing supplies that are available to staff and the public, your customers, will be really, really important. Depending, of course, on how many, what your traffic throughput is, obviously needs to be taken into account. So, and one of the other things to look at too, in this environment, there's a lot of fear, I suppose, and confusion around, well, what sort of chemicals and so on should we use? And there's two basic aspects to that. Number one, using any good type of detergent to clean is very important. And if needed and throughout the day and through the night, a good hospital grade disinfectant that has at least 70% alcohol is recommended. And really the health authorities, the government health authorities, world authorities, that's what they're really saying. There's no need to overreact with fogging machines and misters and so on. Except, of course, if a prevention breaks out, then that's a whole different kettle of fish. And obviously, under those unfortunate circumstances, the facilities would need to be closed down so it can be disinfected properly. So the key points are really your plan, how many high touch points do you have, the availability of personal protective equipment, and then the frequencies, and putting all that together to create some repetitiveness of cleaning throughout the day. And obviously a good clean after hours would be an important consideration moving forward.
Thank you very much, Argy. If you want to pop yourself back on mute for now. So I know Cleaning Melbourne are joining us in a webinar in a couple of weeks' time on our Tuesday sessions, so our operational sessions, where they're going to go into a lot more detail about that. In our comment section now, we'll put their contact details. So if you do want to contact them, reach out. And if you do have any questions for Argy, we're going to be wrapping up in about 5 minutes' time. So hopefully he can hang around and just start typing those questions in. Okay, we're going to go back to the presentation. So I just want to recap on this slide. In the top right-hand yellow box is the key to the resources that you need with opening. So the swim school programming options, that one's coming by the end of the month. The swim training will be available from the 18th. Registrations will be commencing next week. And the risk mitigation, that's the link's been provided, it's on our website, and there's more information to come with the school swimming program. So just skipping over to my last slide. So we're really excited to launch on Monday our Water Safety at Home series. The team's going to put the link in the comments section. It's all available on our website. But basically, we'll be running online practical sessions for nippers, learn to swim participants, or kids wanting to learn water safety. So you might have kids in your swim school program, and you can use these resources to really open them up to the world of nippers programming. To nippers. So join us. The soft launch is today with the Watch and Learn episode, which you saw at the beginning, but the weekly ones start next week. So that includes CPR at home for kids, where kids can make their own mannequins, where they can bring their teddy bear and practice CPR on there. That's going to develop into first aid for kids at home. So we know with people being at home more, a lot of home first aid incidents are happening, such as burns and slips and trips and things. Nippers at home, so some great activities that they can do at home for nippers, and swimming. And then we've got our Watch and Learn series, which jump on 10 minutes early every Wednesday at 10 to 11, and we'll incorporate that. So we're going to go over to question and answer time now. I'll let the water safety team speak up and type your questions, and we'll go from there.
Hey Liz, it's Michelle.
Hello.
We've just had some questions coming through, one from Paula, for those who haven't been able to access the chat. Paula's asked, can the free staff PD be recorded for those who can't access it? So just letting people know that the PD will actually be available to download so that staff can watch it at any time.
Yeah, so you can have it at any time that suits you. You can tag it onto an online staff meeting that you've got, and you can stop and pause it after each section. So stop it after infant, stop it after preschool, stop it after school, and talk about with your group what it means for your swim school, and then play the next section. So it is a recorded session, so you can utilise it when it suits you, Paula. Any other questions, either for myself or Argy?
We also just have a few questions coming through about when today's session will be available, because there's evidently a few people that want to share today's sessions with managers and things like that, their staff teams.
Yeah, so Caitlin, you're probably the best one to jump in there. I believe it's normally available on the website by the end of the day. So Caitlin, is that the usual protocol?
Yep, thanks Liz and Michelle. It should be available hopefully sometime this afternoon. That's usually how it progresses, but we do need to leave approximately 24 to 48 hours sometimes for it to appear on the web page. But if all has been running smoothly like it has been in the past, it should be available this afternoon.
And the two ways to access it is either click on, like there's two ways to access the Watch and Learn series, either click on the banner on our home page, or you can go up to the menu and go to Pool Safety, and then you'll see the AFAR, so AFAR series. And under there, it's got the Tuesdays, the Wednesdays, the Thursdays, and the Fridays episode, and each one of those. So those of you who don't know, we do run 4 days of the week, different theme sessions. Today is Water Safety Wednesday. So today is all about swimming and water safety. Any other questions?
We have one question come through from Sonia, and I think this one's directed to Argy. The question is regarding cleaning. How do we clean boards and floaties in between classes?
I would suggest that you use a good detergent to clean those.
Thank you, Argy. So this will be as part of the resource where we will be putting our recommendation will be about limiting equipment use, or where possible it's single use for the night. There has been some research, and we'll be drawing on this research and linking it in the resource around equipment needs to be sterilised for 30 minutes. So it might mean that your 4 o'clock class have 4 boards, then they're put into the disinfected bucket for the night or until the 5 o'clock class, and you're rotating a series. Our recommendation and our lesson plans that we'll be giving you is to be limiting equipment where possible.
We have one more question come through from Deb, and Deb asks about what is a good detergent to be using.
Anything that you can buy from your supermarkets or a good cleaning shop that you can mix with a degree of water and then clean the surface. It's really the cleaning methods that have a great effect on removing any bacteria, viruses and stuff like that. And then, as said, disinfectants can be used at the end of the day. What Liz mentioned there about the recommended approach to have several boards, for example, and rotate them and disinfect them is also a great option.
And there'll be no sharing or lending out goggles for quite a while, guys. So please end that. So Cleaning Melbourne, I think they're jumping in on the Tuesday session, and I think it's in 2 weeks' time. So when you jump on and have a look at the AFAR series on our website, you can see the timetable of things that'll come on. And in that session, they're going to go into real specific information. So if you run a swim school, jump on, that'll be a crucial one for you. Just before I wrap up, is there any more questions that are coming through, team?
Yeah, hi Liz, it's Jem.
Hi, Jem.
We've got one for Argy again. What's the opinion on the disinfecting capacity of chlorine?
As in chloride, hydrochloride, or the chlorine
just
in the water?
Chlorine.
Sorry?
Chlorine.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that one for you.
Okay.
There has been, you would have seen that when initially, we were on that steep 3-week curve to shut down, there was heaps of things going around saying, corona can't be transmitted in chlorine. From again, this is just my understanding. I don't think that's actually been proven. It's been proven in other diseases, which have kind of transported the concept across. We can't answer that, definitely. But it's more about, it's an airborne disease, so it's more about what's out the water than in the water.
Sorry, Liz, there's one more. So water safety at home and dry swimming programs, is this accessible to the general public or just LSV members and deed holders?
No, it's available to the general public. So the link is should be in the comments bar. but you can go through our website and go to education, and there will be a banner there as well. So it's shortly, so you can click on the banner and take you through. So really encourage them sharing them with your swim school students, because it's, you know, we want to keep their knowledge and skills up as much as possible. And we all know that water safety doesn't stop and start in the pool. There's a lot more waterways, a lot more environment out there. So share them as much as you can. All right, guys, if there's no really pressing questions, which my team will jump in now if there is, thank you very much for joining us today. I've gone a bit longer than what I originally thought, but I think it was all vital information, and there's a lot more info to come. Swim school support services, we're going to be there to support you. So thank you. See you next Wednesday. Join 10 minutes early if you want to. Oops, I forgot to go through the next topics. So here we go. Next topics. Next week is about your swim teachers. So this session is really targeted about tips and tricks for your swim teachers. So get them all to jump on board. If not, the recording's available. The week after is about the National Swimming and Water Safety Framework. So Royal Lifesaving Society will be coming to present on that. So it's a great document that's been newly released. So please come and join that. And then on the 27th, we'll be taking you through CPR for kids and virtual sink or swim. So tomorrow is starting up your leisure centre again after a crisis. So Bruce McKay will be taking us through that, Bruce was involved in the startup of Frankston Park and Western Leisure. So that'll really complement what's happened, what I've said today as well. Thank you, and we will see you next Wednesday. Don't forget to hang up, press the red button, please.